but
Yeah.
if there's, I mean, it's an option.
Yep.
Got cold enough, I want my winter jacket.
Most of my family lives in southeast Wisconsin. All they were doing complain about the rain.
Yeah,
I just want to shovel the rain.
Yes, there is. It's only
I think, and that's in the cities, we'll get colder here.
30 and section 95. So it would be a section on alcohol licensing, a section on, yep, the new burning permit requirements, and, 95 is on the storm sewer utility fund. It's really not a huge amount dealing with plan commission, but.
I borrowed one of your pens.
Oh, okay, I always
Mike,
bring
you need
extras.
one?
That's good.
Is that theft?
Yep, ready to go. I don't know where Dan is.
This would be the stuff that they're proposing to line.
Yeah, that's what I figured it was. Stuff's pricey too. Wow, are we all here?
Yeah,
Dan's not
with
here.
5, oh, not Dan, with 4 minutes to spare, almost, Dan?
Is Dan coming?
I didn't hear that he wasn't.
Okay, well, we'll give him 4 minutes. So on nights like this, do you have time to go home and
I
see your
did.
family for a few minutes and eat and then come right back? Is that what you do?
Actually, as it turns out, I had no family to see you tonight when I went home, but I did go home.
Yeah.
No, family.
I had a kid at gymnastics. Well, actually, no. We're not on camera yet. I had to call it and yell at AT&T because they messed up my bill again this month, and I'm just, makes me angry when I have to spend my short amount of time that I have in the evening messing with their mistakes. So, AT&T,
Oh, yeah.
the phone bill.
Yeah.
I'm just about ready to pull the plug on the home line.
I think they should never have opened up.
Well, so they couldn't resolve my problem in customer service. They had to send me to the retention department. And they couldn't give me a direct number for the retention department. Customer service
thought you were
doesn't
in
have a number. They just can direct you there. So they directed me there, and I got the recording at 6:01 saying, "I'm sorry, this department is closed for the evening." It's just like, so I'm not happy with AT&T.
I wouldn't be either.
So, yeah, my other daughter is at the Environmental Learning Center up near Ely.
Oh, that's supposed to be.
So that's
bet
what
it's
you want to
cold
do
up
when it's getting
there.
cold, is head
I've
4
never
hours
been
north.
there. It's supposed to be really
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
below zero up there.
Yeah, I think so.
Big dress one.
Yeah, they were
Clo-
prepared
no,
for it.
Close to zero, they see
Here, really?
5 in the cities, so.
So what you doing up there?
It's a class field trip. They go up there and do
Environmental
some environmental
studies.
education, and they do like high ropes courses and team building.
I
and
was gonna say
stuff.
wintertime, what kind of
What school?
environmental are they doing?
What's good?
You know, she goes to St. Pat's.
St. Pat's goes there, they.
Well, that would just be so much so easy, wouldn't it? It's way too
All
easy.
that there.
Yeah.
At the power plant, we had environmental education. We try to get in groups of school teachers and things, because it's real good in the book about, you should never pollute, nothing should go in the air and all this, and then you wanna show them what the real world is. Oh, you really want electricity, here's why you have to burn coal, and it's really important for people to see some stuff like
2
that.
minutes to spare.
Yeah.
Good job.
Oh, we got everybody tonight.
No, that's kinda scary, isn't it? Maybe we hold the other meetings on the wrong night. Maybe Mondays are
Monty,
better.
I don't know why yours doesn't work.
Hello.
Yes, there wasn't, the screening, deal wasn't really,
Addressed.
Okay.
addressed. And so explains this, and so there's like 8 copies of it.
All right. Thank you.
And then these are just other pictures looking down the different, roads to just kind of hand through.
Okay.
So if start.
Are they all different pictures?
There's a copy of the proposal of a screening item and an explanation, and then there's pictures that show different views down different roads.
Oh, that's cable if he
Did you
wants
get my
to.
email about the reference to the city?
I did, yeah.
So I'm sure it's not a big deal.
It was just a typo. So, we can mention you and I, or I can mention it. But I did talk to the. Thank you. I'll get you. I've got one on here, so.
No, it's all right, Jan and I can share for a
You
moment.
guys share?
Sure.
Yeah.
We can start, huh? Just let cable
Approaching it from the south.
So, from this, yeah, from Third Street.
Oh,
That's about it.
Yeah, you got one
Did I get the?
What's that?
Is it legal for us? We don't have any type of plan that shows he's submitted anything to this
I think so.
Because methanol is a class B flammable,
Okay.
it's required. We need a tank that's listed.
It is 7 o'clock. Is everyone ready?
So I don't quite understand the question.
Can
though.
we approve this without having?
Okay.
Yeah, I think so, because we can approve our side of it, and if there's a state requirement he has to meet, he still has to meet.
Okay. Work right.
Oh, yeah. We will call to order this special Plan Commission meeting, Monday, December 5th, 2011. Roll call, please.
Terry Filland,
Here.
Rob Howard,
Here?
Chairman Mike Meiser,
Here.
Tom Mitchell, Dan Ortner, Jean Schneider, Mary Wecken.
Here.
Very good. Full crew. First item is, we met on November 16th, and I'd ask for approval of the meeting minutes of that meeting.
So move.
Second?
We have a motion made in second. All in favor of approval of, any discussion, any changes?
I have a little discussion
Discussion on the minutes?
on the minutes, yeah. Should be noted that the application as received by the committee did not have the signature of the landowner, property owner. I know we didn't mention that. The one that we received didn't.
Right, the property owner came in the day of the meeting and signed it, so by the time, you had already had the copies by the time it was
Okay,
signed.
so
Okay.
it was fine.
Okay. Any other corrections, additions?
Did you want that stated in the minutes somewhere, Mary?
I would like that stated because we didn't have that in our packets.
Okay. Did you have a suggestion, just a notation in here under,
I mentioned that it was submitted,
Probably,
that the signatures were completed.
I don't know,
Oh,
maybe,
and
Well, the
copied.
minutes should only describe what happened at that meeting, so if we talked about it and we knew there wasn't a signature, just make a notation
it was
to
brought
that
up at the
fact.
meeting
Yeah.
that Mary asked
Okay,
the
that's what I
question
thought.
and that I had
Oh, you
stated at
answered
that
it.
time
Okay.
that the
You
app,
could just throw a sentence on the end.
Yep.
right
or
at the end
did,
of
was
the
it really brought up
paragraph.
in the meeting, or you just kinda asked me about it, maybe
no, I
even?
thought I heard something to that effect.
I did mention it, but I couldn't remember if it was sort of
Yeah.
like right at the beginning of the meeting, or,
So I don't know if that should happen. I don't remember exactly when that happened. I think it was after our first motion.
okay. Okay, I will make a notation in the minutes
You know, in
that
closed
the question
session.
was asked and that it was answered.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, is everybody comfortable with me just putting that notation in the minutes?
Yep.
Yes.
We'll vote on it.
Well,
We'll vote on
you
it.
Right,
vote on
I
it
mean,
as amended.
just-
Yeah.
As amended.
Yeah.
Anything else? If not, all in favor of approval of the meeting minutes of November 16th, 2011, as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes have been approved. The special meeting tonight is a continuation, well, not a continuation, but it's just further discussion of the meeting of November 16th, where we talked about a conditional use permit for Bright Solutions LLC, applicant Chris Wilkie, to operate a windshield washer fluid manufacturing and distribution business at 400 Monroe Street. So tonight, we will further discuss and possible recommendations to the village board.
Can I make a motion right off the bat? Or do we have to go through discussion first?
No, we can discuss after it's been seconded.
Okay, I make a motion to deny the application for conditional use permit for Bright Solutions LLC based on an incomplete and inaccurate application.
I will second that.
Okay. We have a motion made and seconded. Let's have some discussion. I can't quite hear. Insufficient,
Oh, I wrote it down, so
okay.
if you want it.
Well, just, let's discuss it. It's like.
Okay, incomplete and inaccurate information.
Okay. You wanna bring up?
I'll bring up item 10 on the application, no new construction is marked no, yet plans have been submitted for tank area construction. Item number 10 states, no state approval needed. That's incorrect.
Let me find which document
Item-
you're on first.
Yeah, which
The
one?
application.
Yeah, okay, the application. First one was what?
Item 10,
Item 10? Okay. Oh,
It's-
new construction.
right. And plans have been submitted for the tank construction and the lean-to or whatever. Item 15 on the back of the page, state agency approval required marked no. In fact, state agency approval is needed. This is a flammable liquid with a flash point. And the Wisconsin Department of Safety and Public Services Environmental and Regulatory Services Division needs to do a plan approval before anything can be done.
Okay. Any others?
That's it.
Okay.
I have some others.
Okay.
I think it's only right that we ask the applicant that the plan that they have submitted, the plan that we got is a plan that we just received this week. It has not been submitted to the fire marshal. So his okay on all this, he is not aware of this new plan with the structure being over the top of the tanks. I think that needs to be submitted to our local fire marshal for approval before we can move on this.
I guess I will say that I did forward it to the fire marshal, and I talked to him on Friday, and he indicated to me that he had no additional comments beyond providing us with the fire codes that he provided for the first meeting. So I did talk to Dave Krupich about this.
I talked to him today and he had no idea that there was gonna be a roof over the top of this thing, much less a wood roof. Methanol has a flash point of 52 degrees Fahrenheit
Okay.
in a
Well,
vapor state.
that is contrary to my conversation with him, so that may in fact be the case, but that is not what he had indicated to me when I talked to him at the end of last week.
And I just had a couple other concerns.
Sure.
You know, are your plastic tanks listed? Are they listed for methanol? Are they
I
UL
have
listed?
several comments to several of these things.
Right.
Would you like me to go ahead and offer all of them at the same time, or?
Do you wanna bring up some more
Whatever you
comments
think is
first?
best.
Let's bring up some more comments and we'll get them a microphone so that.
Okay. I had some very same concern that a plan review needs to be sent to the state. Has there been an insurance company that will insure you with your plan that you have submitted to us now? And do you have any type of fire suppression plan in place? Because a methanol fire cannot be put out with water. It's gotta be put out with foam. That's all I got.
I have a question, not directly related to these, and maybe to Mike or to Dan. Remind me what class 1, class 2, class 3 means in terms of flammability?
Class
Flash
1
point.
Class 1B is classified as the same as gasoline.
1B?
Yep. And that's what methanol is classified as.
It is also classified as a hazardous liquid.
Is it what?
Hazardous liquid. There's not only EPA regulations with it, there's state regulations, state COM 10, ILHR 10. There's a whole bunch of state regulations in regards to use of methanol.
I mean, I love the idea of having you guys produce windshield washer fluid here in the village, but we gotta make sure we cover all our bases.
It's good to go. Everything's ready with it.
You want him to go to the podium maybe, Mike?
Everything with it. It's done. It's hot. Just like it.
Mike?
All right.
Mike, maybe you want him to go to the podium when they speak? Because that way it's recorded better and the cameras are
Oh,
pointing
okay, I
there.
didn't think it would make a difference with the microphone, okay.
Well, there's a mic there already at the
Okay.
podium is what I'm saying.
Okay. So, the class was on Flashpoint. You mentioned the Flashpoint of 52 earlier. Anything else down on this end?
Well, today is a class 1, division B, it's gotta be explosion-proof wiring, and this just shows vapor-tight and waterproof outlets and fixtures there, so it should be explosion-proof wiring. Included in those areas within certain distances of the openings of the tank and the vents and the hoses, output hoses.
Well, and I will go back to what I perhaps said last time. I do not accept, I don't accept that this is not warehousing, this warehousing versus process. And the codes say warehousing of hazardous substances, flammable liquids, gaseous, vaporous, or explosive substances is prohibited under our code.
Would you take the podium and feel free to answer them in order or which source we can follow.
Well, first, let me just say thank you. I appreciate the special meeting for everybody coming out tonight. You have opportunities to be with your family, and you're here tonight. I appreciate your time. So first thing that was mentioned was state approval and the application process. And admittedly, I was unaware of all of the process, and this has been a learning experience for me. And I spent some time today with Andy Hahn, who is the state plan reviewer at the agency that was mentioned.
I spoke with him this morning also.
Okay. Well, we had the conversation this afternoon with the same gentleman, and he explained to me some of the process because a tank that has a capacity over 5,000 gallons comes under his review as opposed to Mr. Shervey over in Chippewa Falls, which I think Dan mentioned to me last time we met together. So I've been working at this, learning this, and there's only one reason I'm trying to do that: not to make you happy, but because we want to be in compliance with the state as well as the local concerns. So I hope that you're happy with that. But my ultimate goal here is to be in compliance with the state regulations. So the process that is entailed requires a plan review. So no matter what, if a conditional use permit is granted, there's still a long process that I must undergo, our company must undergo, in order to make sure that we're in compliance with all of the state regulations. Upon review, then the tank, because of the size of the tank, over 5,000 gallons, it has to be installed by a state-certified installer. And I've been in contact with several installers here in Wisconsin in order to make sure that it is installed properly. So Mr. Hahn suggested that before we even submit those documents to him for the approval process, he recommended, actually he recommended a tank supplier. I called the tank supplier. They recommended certain installers so that the installer, who is the most aware of all these codes, can make sure that our documentation and our plan will meet with the approval at the state. At that time, we can then submit those documents to the state for the approval process. Mr. Hahn was very gracious and suggested that with some ongoing communication with his office, he can help us expedite the plan, the approval process. I was very grateful that he'd be willing to help us get this going. He understands that we would like to try and get something installed for the winter season. So we were very encouraged with the conversation that we had with Mr. Hahn. So the application that I submitted with some ignorance. I must confess. And so the process, as I have learned, will require some installation, some planning, and some approval by the state safety, which they use the National Fire Protection Agency Code 30, which I think Mr. Ortner is probably quite aware of, as he mentioned it to me regarding fire protection. And so whatever gets installed, and I think what I'm trying to say here is the plan that is before you today is still somewhat fluid, no pun intended, because we need to make sure that what we submit is going to meet the standard that the state has. The state requires 25% greater capacity than what the National Fire Protection Agency requires. National Fire Protection Agency requires that whatever secondary containment system that you have, it must be 100% of the largest tank in that containment area. The state requires 25% more. The plans that you have before you were developed based on that 25% more. In fact, they even have, I looked at the calculations myself, and they've even overbuilt it beyond the requirement because they want to make sure that what they're doing is going to meet the state's requirements and just make sure that everybody's happy with the end product. So yes, it looks like there's going to be some kind of a construction that was not properly indicated when I submitted the application. I didn't fully understand exactly what is going to entail at the time that we submitted an application, and so this has been a learning process for me. I'm grateful for your patience and your willingness to give me some time to make sure that what we put together meets with your approval as well as the state's approval. Yes, there does appear to be some new construction that would be involved in this process. Yes, it definitely will have to meet the state's approval, and of course, it has to meet with local approval because it's going to be local fire marshals and that are going to look at the safety concerns. It has to meet with, because it is new construction, it's going to have to pass several permit processes in order to meet with the local approval. My understanding, as I've gone through this and as I talked with the safety, Mr. Hahn at the state, that when it is an exterior, if it's set up within the code that they provide in COM 10, which is their version of the state's interpretation of how NFPA is applied in Wisconsin. If it meets with those code, a fire suppression system is not necessary because it is an exterior. It's an exterior application. We do have insurance with McGuire Agency. Cincinnati Insurance Company is the underwriter for that, and they provide insurance for all of our vehicles as well as workman's compensation and all the other requirements necessary for us to conduct business. At the time that we launch into this new phase, if the board, if it meets with the board's approval, naturally we're going to be looking at increasing our liabilities because of the new processes that would be in place. Are there any other questions that maybe I missed as we kind of went through that?
I have a question that hasn't been brought up yet.
Yes, sir.
We talked about tank materials last time.
Yes, thank you. As I was talking with Mr. Hahn, we investigated high-density polyethylene tanks, a plastic tank. I have reams of paper that show where it is an acceptable material for storing and keeping methanol in large tanks. The problem with that is the ability to ground that tank. We can ground the material inside the tank using steel bulkheads and a grounding system to ground the material inside the tank, but we can't actually ground a plastic tank. Which is why he said the standard for Wisconsin is a steel tank. And so at that point I said, okay, so help me understand. Is a high-density polyethylene tank better or worse? He said, no, HDPE is a substandard material for your application. So I said, so what you're telling me is I cannot use a plastic tank, an HDPE tank. He said, no, you can. You have to submit a variance request. The variance request demonstrating what you're going to do for fire suppression, because at this point you would have to provide fire suppression because the possibility that the tank could melt if something else were close by and providing heat, a heat source. So at that point he said you would have to provide the fire suppression. So again, a very enlightening conversation. And so what I told him was I'm going to tell the board members tonight that the drawings that you had before you that specify a HDPE tank or better. In this case, we're going with the or better. I've been talking with an installer who will actually be the provider for the tank. We can't actually buy tanks directly from the local supplier in Toma. But they can. And so we're talking with them about the possibility of having them be the provider for the tank. It'll be a steel tank, possibly a double-wall steel tank, as Mr. Ortner had suggested might be applicable for this.
Tanks?
For both tanks, yes. Because the same situation is only slightly, is true, but to a lesser degree. It is 60% water. However, it's still classified as flammable because it's greater than 24% by mass concentration. So it is still classified as a flammable product. Therefore, we would meet the same, have to meet the same criteria in order to make it safe.
Actually, the trade material you provide it states that the methanol water solutions plastic is not suitable. It actually says that one's worse than the pure methanol. The chart we have from our engineer says methanol could work, and it says the methanol water mixture is not suitable.
Yeah, so and the problem is mild steel is the recommended material for the storage of methanol. However, when you introduce water into that solution, the mild steel begins to corrode because of the water in the methanol mixture. So you get into this bizarre situation. So what we would have to have is a stainless steel tank. The one that has the water, because and we face this because of some of the parts that we use in our applications at some of the gas stations. We've used some older steel that has started to corrode because of years of being exposed to the water solution. So we've had to go back in with HDPE components. I take exception to your engineer because, again, I've got reams of paper that says that this is a perfect HDPE, and nylon and rubber are what's recommended.
No, what I'm saying is in the literature you provided.
I'm sorry.
It says that.
Yeah. The strangest...
This literature from the Methanex Corporation, it says methanol is, it talks about methanol, but then it says tanks built with copper alloys, aluminum, or plastics are not suitable for methanol water solutions.
Yeah.
They say that in the trade literature.
It is an unusual thing because I found several other sources that are in direct contradiction to that.
I'm
So,
just saying, it's your own literature.
yes, sir. Thank you very much. I thought you said our own engineers said
And
that.
our engineer had something that said, you know, you can use certain plastics for methanol, 100%. It says 100% on the chart. Mm-hmm. But because of some other issues, it's better to go with steel.
Right. So we use the plastics components, fittings and things like that in applications out at the gas stations, and it is far superior to the steel. So and I have found several websites, including the IPCS INCHEM, which is the United Nations Environmental Program, also representative of the International Labor Organization, the World Health Organization, on methanol. And they stipulate that rubber and HDP and other plastics, nylon, are very suitable for this type of application. So it's unusual that we're getting so many contradictory pieces of information on the subject.
I think your best route is you need to get a plan submitted to the state, and they're going to require that whatever tank that you plan to use is listed, whether it's UL listed or Canadian listed for methanol, and the state will determine whether it's suitable or not.
Yes, sir. We are looking at getting no less than a UL 142, which is the bare minimum requirement for storage of flammable liquids. There is a 288C or something. I can't remember the other one. He said it's the next listing up. But he says you really, he did not see where that was necessary. In fact, he warned me at the state, he warned me when you're comparing apples to apples, make sure that, because I was telling him that the tanks are very expensive, and when I told him the price, he said, that doesn't sound right. So make sure that you're getting, that somebody's not pulling one over on you. So that's when he recommended certain suppliers locally, and that's when I started making some additional phone calls to try and get something that would satisfy the state's requirements.
There is a guy by the name of Sheldon Shaw that works with a state that specifically deals with tank storages of flammable liquids. And he told me today that plastic is not listed for methanol. So I just want to share this information so maybe it'll help you do your homework.
Thank you. And at this point, my request to the committee is we want to conduct business in a way that is in full compliance with the state and satisfies the concerns of this city where we want to conduct business. And based on, we're trying to do our due diligence and to make sure that all of those requirements are met. We simply, in fact, cannot conduct business without meeting those requirements because it has to be a certified tank. Because of the capacity that's involved. So we simply have to, not that we have to or don't have to, we simply could not conduct business without properly meeting the state's requirements. That's not just a promise to you, that's a requirement that we will have to operate under. And based on that, I'm asking that you would consider our commitment and our requirements before the state to satisfy those and grant us the conditional use permit.
Any questions, Tyler?
I would just respond to that in one way. You know, it would be within your authority to granted, you're not the granting body. I think we made this clear to you last time. It's the village board that's the granting body. This is the recommending body. So tonight they'll either recommend or not, your proposal, and it'll still go before the village board then. But you could, if you wanted to, approve it with conditions, and one of the conditions could be get us the state approvals, and until we get them, it's still you can't do it because that's one of the conditions that has to fall into place. So you could do that if you wanted to.
Um,
ahead.
so, all the information that we had, or suggestions that we had given him as a body last time have not been completed 3 weeks later. We're still going to approve this application tonight. I mean, we have a motion to deny it.
I know
That's what's
we're
on the
still in
table,
discussion.
And again, he can go to the village board tomorrow night and they can approve it, but, based on the application as presented, the information as given, I
I mean, there's no, I don't
Okay.
think we have. a
believe
rule
we
on
should
that.
deny the application.
Any other questions about the first questions you had about his answers?
No, I mean, it's great that, you know, he talked to Andy today. I would have thought that you would have talked to the state before you applied for the application. But, I mean, it's great. I'm glad you're going on with that, because if you didn't know about Andy, I have his phone number to give you tonight.
And there's still some discrepancies about fire marshal, local and,
But again,
whatever.
all of that is regulated by the state. There is Area 1, USTAST specialist that goes, in fact, I tried to speak with him today, but he was out inspecting tanks all day. So there's a lot of regulations going on here. And, but my point is, as the application was given to us, and the material that was given to us, it is incorrect and inaccurate, incomplete and inaccurate. And that is the basis for my motion, to deny it, based on an incomplete and inaccurate application.
questions, comments on here? Questions, comments?
It seems to me like you're answering the questions, though, that, the conditions that, you know, are presented. So in a way, you know, we can be satisfied that you are meeting some of those criteria, but I'm still not comfortable with some of the elements that you're bringing forward tonight. In terms of screening, that's inadequate. This is inadequate as far as I'm concerned. So I would tend to think that for you to expect us to hear you for the first time and yes, we'll comply and yes, we will, but we're not really seeing the full plan. You know, we don't have the full understanding of what you're gonna give us, you know, what you're gonna provide, you know, on the, not give us, but give the city, give the village. So I would tend to agree that I'm not sure that we can recommend approval until you have all your ducks in a row. I mean, you don't have them, you're still working on it, you know. I'm not certain that I can disapprove you based on the fact that you will get state compliance. I mean, it sounds like you're in the process of working through those steps. We're not the regulating agency. You know, the state will be, the fire marshal will be. But I think your screening plan is inadequate from my perspective. So, one other thing.
May I offer a comment to his concern?
Sure.
My understanding is that the screening issues are a question for the owner, and I know during a conversation with the architect, there was a discussion. There was a discussion about providing some trees, some additional screening options. I asked the architect about that, and she stated that she would like to find out more exactly what what level of screening, what type of screening would the city be comfortable with. Would trees be an adequate screening option that would satisfy the concerns of the village? My request would be: is there a way that we can make a promise or provide a detail in a drawing that says, yes, this is going to meet or exceed our expectations of how this is going to be done for the project. I don't know, Colin, if Colin has any comments regarding it, but I know he was planning on putting an additional tree or two in to satisfy the screening concerns.
Can I just make a comment
Mike,
here on,
just a
on
second.
the, go.
Yeah, go up to the. Yeah, that's all, I just wanted to do that. Okay. Did you have a
On the-
question on the?
On the picture that I gave you guys,
3 days.
all of you have, the point is that where you see this white door and the first tree, that's where the tanks would be. And here's your view coming down the road. This is the issue. And existing, and there's a picture that went around too that shows there are 4 mature pine trees here. It's gonna be, well, and I said that there's some manhole covers and whatnot right here where it would be logical to add more trees. But there are existing trees there, and you may have a problem with hitting the roots and whatnot on the existing trees if you tried to shove some more in there. So that's why I came up with, well, we could add some posts just to be minimally invasive. Some posts and wire across Engelmann ivy is beautiful, especially in the fall, and it will cover up, you know, everything that you can that's exposed now, like the semi-trailer in the neighbor's yard. So I mean, if you say, well, we need a tree in there, and we need to, you know, take out the fence between those 2 trees that you see, well, that's fine. But that's the issue. They're mature trees that we may damage the root structure on. So that's why I came up with that.
Thank you.
What are these, Norways? Do you know? Nothing's worse than a Norway for any purpose whatsoever.
Jack pine, that's worse.
Before we vote on your motion, one comment I want to make before we vote on it is, according to our code book here, yeah, if the plan commission determines some things are insufficient, we do have, the plan commission may defer action indefinitely or to a subsequent meeting, or may approve or deny. So just like Terry said before, we can approve with conditions, we can deny, or we can just choose to put it off into the future. The other point I'd like to make, I'm sure Becky was gonna bring this up a little later, but our next regularly scheduled meeting is like a couple days before Christmas, and that was canceled, because we're having our December meeting kinda now. So if we were to put something off into the future, it wouldn't be until January at the earliest anyway. But I just want to make that before we vote on your motion.
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
Since I haven't asked any, and it would be of you. This fence in this picture is 6 feet tall,
I believe so,
or something like that?
yes.
How tall are the tanks?
180 inches.
16 feet.
So 16 feet.
To me, it's kind of like where your perspective is driving down the road and that kind of thing, so that's why. And as you see the building existing, it's fairly camouflaged by the existing mature trees. And that extra 2 feet, 3 feet, whatever, would add quite a bit to screening that more.
feet, though, aren't they? Or maybe not.
Yeah, but that's about a 7,000 or 8,000 gallon tank.
Any other discussion?
We're also looking at alternatively a horizontal tank. It makes no difference to me whatsoever if it's vertical or horizontal. It makes no difference to the process.
I'm
if
sorry,
it's
you
easier-
should, use
Yes,
the
sir.
mic. Yep, because they do tape these.
We are looking at a horizontal tank as well as a vertical tank. Vertical tanks take up less ground space, which is why it's more attractive. It doesn't take up as much parking area. So we're looking into the possibility of a horizontal tank. In this case, it takes up, you wouldn't see it from the road. It would maybe be about 8 feet tall, so essentially you wouldn't see it. I don't want to offer too many options because we want to try and go with something that can give you some idea of what you might expect. Who could foretell the future? Only God. And so we're trying to give our best, our best plan. Again, I mentioned before, it's still fluid. We're trying to understand what is going to meet all the requirements, which we're happy to meet because we want everybody to be safe in this process.
Can I make one more comment, too?
I just wanted to explain the other pictures that went through. It just simply shows the different vantage points as you're going down the road, and not to bring up a sore subject, but the point is that the one person that had complained or wrote the letter was I don't remember the gal's name, but it's Butch Zappa's house on the corner. And I assume it's some sort of relative that still lives there. And their view directly is all the commercial equipment looking directly across the street at the railroad stuff. And looking down the street, my property is far less invasive, much more attractive, just my opinion. And so I would definitely try to keep it that way and keep things unjunked up and whatnot.
I would agree with you. I would agree
Yes.
with you.
Yeah, I would agree with
You have to be a little bit careful on screening too, because at some point you run into our fence requirements, and at some point fences become more obtrusive than,
Fences have a
Steve,
certain
is-
height restriction, and then there's visual barriers.
yeah.
And that's why I was talking about just maybe stringing the wire with a vine.
I think the ivy's a nice touch.
Any other discussion? Anyone else have anything to say before? Yes.
Yeah. Excuse me. This is the basis for my motion last time, which was defeated. I am still likely to oppose this at the end of the process, so I would like, as you vote on this, to make sure that you're not, if you're comfortable, if they meet all the requirements, that you'll approve it, that's fine. I don't want to string them along, so I will tell you now that in all likelihood, I'm going to vote no on this whenever it happens. But I just don't want to string these folks along, and I'm only one vote.
I agree with you on the definition of warehousing. I mean, the tank is going to be filled at least once a week. 7 days is storing warehousing. It is. And this is a flammable, hazardous liquid. Now, Yoakum was grandfathered in that area, and it's diesel fuel, heating oil, and unleaded gas that are in those tanks.
I guess I just have to say that methanol, an 8,000 gallon tank of methanol, if it was ignited, would take out half of our village.
It's really not that explosive, is it?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is.
Did you see the kid in the science class?
Oh,
They had
yeah.
2 tablespoons of methanol in a container and they lit the top of it on fire. He's at HCMC. Methanol is very explosive.
That was methanol?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing
52
is,
degrees Fahrenheit, it
and
will
you can't
ignite.
see the flame.
Well, the documents I had gotten last time, and I guess I thought I brought them with me. I thought the explosive hazardness of methanol was right here. I thought on the, and maybe it was even on the MSDS sheet I got, that it wasn't a very explosive, it was very flammable, and it's toxic if you eat it, But explosive wise, because I was looking at the LELs, what it takes to get it to explode.
Yep.
It'll burn, You know, it's not gonna explode, it's gonna burn because it doesn't have the accumulation of vapors like a gasoline does or something like that. So I didn't look at it as an explosive hazard, personally, from the way I read it. And Mike, I'm not a fireman, but
That's what I got from the fire marshal.
interesting.
I mean, gasoline has a flash point of minus 45 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right.
Methanol has a flash point of 52 degrees Fahrenheit.
Flashpoint though, and explosive limit is nowhere near the same thing, you know.
Yes, you are correct.
It's a big, well, that, and that's a big difference
There's a
to me.
big difference, yes.
And it's a big difference to me about, is this thing, could it really blow? And most
But,
likely it's gonna, methanol will burn, gasoline would blow.
Okay, I can't quite understand what you're saying. So gasoline, what did you say gasoline was?
Gasoline has a flash point of minus 45 degrees
And
Fahrenheit.
explain
Now,
flashpoint.
what does that mean? I mean, I could have
That's
a,
one
I could
little-
have a cup of gasoline here and it wouldn't be flaming up, and we're way above minus 45 Fahrenheit.
Yes.
So maybe I'm misunderstanding what
Yes.
this even means.
That I would agree. I guess the flash point, I'm not exactly totally sure what the term flash point is, if and when it will explode.
Well, and again, the MSDS sheet I have for methanol that I brought last time, it says the flash point is 53.6 degrees. The auto ignition temperature, what you were saying, if the room is how warm, when will it go? The auto ignition temperature is 851 degrees on methanol.
Is that a liquid state?
Well, but again, as you know, liquids don't burn, they vaporize, solids don't burn, they vaporize, and then they burn. And the explosive limits, it's 6% by volume, the upper limit is 31%, so it's got a very narrow explosive range, 6 to 31%. Whereas if you take hydrogen, for instance, is 5% to 95%. So almost anything of hydrogen will explode, but this is more likely to burn. That's,
The definition of flash point is the lowest temperature at which it can vaporize to form an ignitable mixture in air.
right.
So gasoline will vaporize at minus 45.
Okay.
That's
Methanol
why when
will
you're gassing up
vaporize
your
at-
car, you don't want it running because of the catalytic converter underneath, which is very hot, and you don't want the fumes going down. So,
The flash point is
Better
not to
stop
be
doing
confused with
that,
the
Mike.
auto ignition temperature, which
Right.
does not require an ignition source.
right, that's what
I
you were
guess-
saying.
That's maybe what terminology is
Right,
misleading in a way. Flash point is not when it's gonna explode.
right. And then you have to
Flash
look
point
at
is
the
the
explosive
point where it
limits.
vaporizes.
Actually, the explosion thing is the explosive limits, and that's where the lower limit is 6%, the upper limit's 31% by volume. And that means that if you had more than 31%, it couldn't explode. If you stuck a match in it, couldn't explode if it was more than 31% methanol. As I said, at the power plant, when I worked at the power plant, I worked with hydrogen. And hydrogen was, and the reason that the engineer's doing it is it's really touchy, you have to be really, very careful, and it was like 5 to 95%, so almost anything would set that stuff off. So you never let air and hydrogen touch, because that makes an explosive mixture. You always use carbon dioxide, you know, things like that.
So, and then that was one of the things that at the last meeting, we were looking up some of the data.
Right.
And it was the fact that methanol was not as hazardous as
From an explosion point,
from explosion.
Right.
that would be my point of view.
Yeah. I think the point is that you're coming to us with incomplete information, and you're expecting us to rule on elements of project that we don't have full understanding of. I mean, you're suggesting horizontal tanks. Well, I think that's a great idea because you wouldn't see them. I'm a little concerned that in a residential neighborhood, we don't have better control of what you see from the neighbors, from the homes. And I understand your point.
It's industrial.
Well, but you're adjacent to a residential neighborhood, so.
They bought their, these are existing buildings for quite some time, and, it's part of the thing. Like I say, look across the street, that's way worse.
Yep. Well, these are tanks that are gonna be up in the air and, clear view, and that's a higher level of industrialization than a trailer and a truck. So
You do have to be a little
I'm very
careful though,
concerned about
Rob,
sightlines of those.
holding them to a residential standard when they're in an industrial zone.
Exactly. Right.
I agree with Rob, though. We need a plan. This is what you're gonna go with. I mean, we can't approve something that is up in the air. We need something substantial. here's what we got approved, this is what we wanna do.
I would agree with that. I mean, you can't just approve something without knowing what I'm approving, or what they're gonna
No, I
actually
mean, if you're
be.
gonna go to the state and submit plans, I mean, that's an important thing that we would need to rule on.
Yeah, to see that that was done.
Any other discussion? We still have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, I see it, he can't proceed without complying to the state codes and standards.
Right.
Well, our job is just to decide whether we will allow it to be there. We can't have him have a complete set of design plans for us to say, no, you can't do it.
That's my point.
He's paying an engineer to do something just to get a yes or no. It's the board, it's the village board's problem after we say, yes, it's okay to have it. They'll see that the screening is proper, the design is adequate, and that they comply to the state and federal codes that were required for it.
I see our job as a plan commission to beat this all out like we're doing, to ask all the detailed questions, because if you've been to the village board meeting, they go on long enough. And they can't devote this kind of time to each and every issue. That's our job. And so we should do the best we can to get as much of a complete plan to them so they know what they're voting on. Do you agree? I mean, look at, we're spending a lot more time on this than they will.
Yeah.
And they have the ultimate authority.
But again, for them to come up with a complete set of plans for this, they have to comply to the
Right.
codes. They have to do that. They have no choice.
So you're saying that our question is whether or not we would allow it. If it was a perfect plan and we agreed to everything they planned, do we want that type of industry in North Hudson?
I think that's the ultimate,
And that was,
And to answer that question, it goes, section 98 point, or dash 34 of our code specifically says warehousing of hazardous substances, flammable liquids, or explosive substance is prohibited.
My comment on that
Yeah?
is, as you
The
mentioned last.
definition of warehousing or
No, I
storing.
understand. As you mentioned last meeting, you weren't here when we changed we just changed all these. And we did not, and Terry brought this up too, we did not bring that up and say, what do we want to do about warehousing? You know, it was something that was on the existing plan, and we changed everything around it, and we didn't catch that. We didn't have that discussion then when we were changing the ordinance.
Right.
Anyway, that's, for what that's worth, that's what happened.
That's the history of it, but Mary's point's very valid, you know, you do have to come up with a definition. You guys get to come up with a definition of
Yes.
warehousing, and I think I'm hearing Terry and Mary on one side very clearly. I think last week I heard you on the other side.
Right.
that
As I recall, did we vote on that
It's-
last
it's
time, or did we just discuss it?
processing. Well, you didn't vote on that.
Okay, we discussed
specific-
it.
No,
you-
we
you
just discussed
And
it.
then you tabled the thing because you wanted more information.
Yes.
But that is this board's,
No, there was a vote about whether it was, there was a vote about whether it was warehousing.
Yeah, we did vote on it.
No, we didn't vote. It says most members stated that the proposed use by Wilkie did not constitute warehousing.
Isn't that voting on it?
There was a
Yeah.
discussion,
There
but
was
we didn't
discussion.
vote.
There wasn't a motion
Oh, okay.
about.
but I think
thought we
if
had
you
two
come to
votes.
a conclusion that you're gonna approve this conditional use permit, and part of that is based on the fact that you've decided this is not a warehousing application, this is a processing, that would be okay. And if you come to the conclusion that, wait, this is a warehousing, that would be okay too.
Yes.
You guys have the call to interpret your ordinance based on local conditions. You know, and if there's some ambiguity here, your definition is gonna stand up against a challenge.
But we can't define that tonight. We can't vote on that tonight because it hasn't been publicized, correct?
I think it's part of, I don't,
I understand it's part of this, but we can't
I
make a
think
definitive
you can
statement.
make a determination on aspects of
particular
this
case,
particular
yes.
application.
Okay.
I would suggest, I think we've been pretty clear on what the additional expectations in terms of state approvals and those kinds of things are. You know, that's been conveyed pretty well. I would suggest that Mary withdraw her motion, and I will recommend denial because it does not meet the code. It's warehousing of flammable hazardous material. If that goes down, if that motion goes down, then I think they've been given the direction, again, that you're willing to entertain approval if the conditions are met. Is that clear as mud?
Yep. I'd like to make one comment before we go ahead and do this. Under COM 10, a process tank or a flow-through process tank does not include a tank that is used for the storage of materials before their introduction into the production process or for the storage of a finished products or byproducts from the production process, or a tank that is used only to recirculate materials. A process tank would be considered a storage tank if the vessel is used as storage for a period exceeding 96 hours after the processing ends. That's our state code.
What is COM 10? Tell me
COM
what that
10
means.
is the Wisconsin State Legislature code that he's gonna have to meet.
Administrative code that regulates
Is it a
flammable,
Commerce Department or
combustible.
what?
No, this is Wisconsin.
Just state statute?
Yep.
It's the admin code that falls under the Commerce Department, which has now been segregated into many divisions.
Oh, at one time it was Commerce Department.
Yes.
Because all I could find, because I'm not aware of this, I found EPA definitions last time of what a process was. In my world, that's a process.
Yep.
Here, this is much more specific.
So I think that's, what that's saying is that you need a much smaller tank that gets filled more often. In other words, in order for you to comply with that
To
as a
consider it
process
as a
material,
process tank.
as a process material, it would need to have only, what does it say, 96 hours worth of material?
Yes.
So, I understand, I maybe have been misunderstanding what the definition of process and storage was, under those criteria.
Well, what is number one saying?
This is
Because I don't know
storage.
what's above it.
It's
They
not
give
process.
another
You
definition of a
exceed that
process
process
tank,
limit
and they
based
don't
on the
list
Wisconsin
a
statute.
time.
Do you have the page before it?
Process or flow-through process tank means a tank that forms an integral part of the production process through which there is a steady, variable, recurring, or intermittent flow of materials during the operation of the process, and the tank is utilized to carry out or control the heating, cooling, mixing, blending, separating, metering, or chemical action of materials. The process is done on a regular basis, and it is a primary function of the tank.
That's close to my definition, but there's two definitions there, and I don't.
Yes, but this definition under the process tank or a flow-through tank, that's what it says is a process tank. And then number 2 says a process tank or flow-through tank does not include a tank that is used for the storage of materials.
Okay, so that's the difference.
So
Andy
his-
gave me the analogy of a paint factory today, where you have a container of black paint, a container of white paint, and a mixing container, and then a container that the paint that was mixed goes into, which would be gray. The black paint container, the white paint container, and the gray container are all regulated storage tanks. The mixing container is not. That's the
So
process.
that's the definition
Right.
of storage. Our zoning code defines warehousing, doesn't it? I mean, that's what, the word that
Well,
they're.
we use the word
they're-
warehousing, and somewhere else we use the word storage. So we're using both of those words.
So,
Apparently, things.
the question is, what are we really meaning by warehousing? I mean,
That goes back to what Terry said, that's what we define it as.
Yeah,
yeah,
and I think you can use this definition from COM 10 if you want to, but I don't think that the definitions you find in one particular aspect of the administrative code necessarily apply to something else, like a local village code, so.
No, if you read all of these codes, every single chapter has a list of definitions that apply only to that chapter.
Yep.
So you can
And you
use it
could
as
have the same
useful
word.
background information, but not as a sort of a definitive, it must be this way.
Sure.
Well, on their own thing, what's the very last thing where it says process tanks are excluded from whatever it is they're talking about in section L, whatever that is? On the very small print on the
It
end?
says process tanks are outside the scope of this chapter.
So it's this definition as Mary just said.
Yeah.
They're
Yes.
defining it and then they're saying, and for whatever it is they're talking about on those couple pages, that we're not talking about these.
That paint mixing tank?
That's what you're saying.
They're not talking about
They're
that.
talking about storage tanks or whatever.
Yes.
And so they
Talking
say,
about
and
the water
and here's
and
what the
the
difference
methanol.
is.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying, okay.
In our process that's going on here, though, our process tank is literally your service truck that you're gonna be delivering with. That's where the mixing
That's where the mixing
process
occurs.
is gonna take place. The tanks that
Oh,
you
the tank,
have,
the
Possibly
outgoing
in a
truck.
smaller tank.
yes.
Is that true? Or
We
what?
proposed two different methods in our scope of work. I think in the drawings there, it did propose two different methods that we use. Currently, we use exactly what Mr. Ortner suggested. We we actually blend on board the tank truck. We are very interested in a blending tank, as Ms. Wecken was outlining. A separate tank that would allow us to blend in that tank so that when we put it on the truck, it's ready to go, and we don't have to use that asset, the truck, as a blending, but only as a delivery. That's where it makes the most money for the company. So we would potentially use both methods.
The blended product probably would not be flammable, but it would still be,
It is
Still-
considered flammable.
It
We
still
do
is
pla-
flammable?
We do placard.
you placard it
Because,
flammable.
yes, sir, because it contains more than 24% by volume, by mass, by weight of methanol. So it is considered a flammable placard material.
And it would still be placarded, for health reasons.
Yeah,
You still can't drink it.
No, sir.
Excuse me, it's 8 o'clock, I gotta go. Is there any more questions for me?
I don't-
I don't think so.
I'm sorry, I'm not complying with your audio.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Colin.
Any other discussion? You have a motion, it's been seconded. You ask her to rescind her motion.
Withdraw my motion.
Read the motion.
The motion was to deny the application based on, or deny it based on the application itself contained inaccurate and incomplete information.
And you withdraw your motion, who seconded it?
Dan
I
seconded
Dan
second it.
seconded it.
Do you withdraw your second?
Becky, is what you have written down?
Yes.
These, yeah, okay.
Good. Dan, Mary Wicken, and Dan is first, second.
You wanna withdraw your motion?
I'm relying on Terry here and the rest of you.
All right.
You
I'll
can
agree.
always make it again after this vote if he's just
Oh,
gonna
I
make the
plan on it.
process.
So let's,
Yeah.
make sure Becky has this.
Okay, so the
It is
motion
properly withdrawn. And the second has been withdrawn. Okay,
I think that's the right plan, Mary.
I'll entertain any other motions tonight.
I'll make a motion to deny the application for conditional use permit.
Reason?
Because it does not meet the, it's
98
in violation of the, of our ordinance forbidding warehousing of hazardous substances, flammable liquids, gases, vaporous, or explosive substances.
Which is that 98 what?
98-34.
Okay.
For a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I think we have to define what warehousing is.
Yeah, no, we haven't done that.
Some way, shape, or form, we gotta come up with something.
Well, I think if we look at that, the state document, that's outlining it in one way.
Yeah.
Um,
It doesn't say warehousing, it just declares or it defines what a process tank and a storage tank would be.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my arms around what that definition of warehousing and production, you know, and I mean, I'm seeing your use of it as production. I mean, that's really kind of my mind sees it as a production facility. I don't see it as a warehouse. I know a warehouse, you know, stuff sits in barrels and stacks up for weeks at end.
No, I'm sorry.
But that's not how I see your process happening. But that's contrary to what that definition says. That definition.
That
talks about
definition.
96 hours.
Yes.
So I'm a little conflicted.
May I offer a comment? Does this committee want to accept the responsibility of making sure that every 96 hours my inventory is turned over? I mean, no offense, but I could tell you, oh yeah, every 96 hours it'll be turned over. But that'd be a wonderful thing on my part if that happened. But I'm not sure if that definition really, you want to be held to that standard. You might want something, I'm sure the attorney is going to offer much better advice, but you might want something that's a little more objective, that you don't have to check up on somebody every 96 hours to make sure that their inventory turned over. If that's how you're going to define it.
My personal comment is, I'm agreeing with Rob. I came from the process world. We didn't have any 96-hour things. We just had storage, and we had storage tanks, we had process tanks, lots and lots and lots of them, and hundreds of thousands of gallons, and, you know, all sorts of things like that. In my mind, it's all a process. That's not a problem. When we rewrote these ordinances, I did not get a red flag of this particular point, other than we didn't want tank farms. So my interpretation of why is that here, because we didn't think that it was gonna stop something, a small 8,000-gallon tank in the future.
My interpretation
Oh,
is.
I agree.
Yeah, is that this is definitely warehousing or storage, if you will. And I don't think, in my mind, warehousing implies anything in terms of how long it's there. Mary's analogy, or the discussion she got of the black paint and the white paint that get processed to make gray paint. 3 of those conditions, in my mind, are storage and or warehousing. The blending operation is process.
Yeah, my point was more, you were here when we rewrote this, you know, we didn't discuss, we don't want to ever have a tank of anything, because we know there's gas tanks and there's oil tanks and there's natural gas. I mean, there's stuff, you know, and this was the industrial area, and so we didn't, you know, you'd never have an above-ground gas tank in a neighborhood or anything.
Yeah,
That's my only point on that.
yeah, and, you know, I don't want to get in a big dispute about it, but we also, under number 10, say fuel storage tanks for use by a business in its operations, but not for wholesale or retail, is a conditional use
Right,
application. So.
right, and that was the fuel storage, yeah. Okay, any other discussion? If not, if you'd read the motion one more time.
Okay, I have the motion to deny the conditional use permit for Bright Solutions because it doesn't meet the warehousing, 98-34 sub 9 definition of warehousing.
Well, which prohibits.
Prohibit,
Which
it
prohib-
violates.
Violate, yes,
Because
right.
it violates, yeah.
Okay, violates instead of doesn't. Sorry. Okay, thank you.
Roll call vote.
Why don't you read that one more time now?
Yep.
Okay, motion to deny the conditional use permit for Bright Solutions because it violates 98-34 sub 9, the definition of warehousing.
A flammable liquid.
Yeah, I don't think you need that last part, because it violates the definition,
violates.
because it violates 98.34,
Dash 34.
Sub 9.
which prohibits the warehousing of flammable liquids.
Okay, so, which prohibits,
I don't wanna put words in your mouth, Terry, but I think that's what.
Yeah, I don't want the,
Say
The
warehousing
warehousing.
of hazardous substances and flammable liquids.
prohibits warehousing flammable liquids and
Has substances, flammable liquids.
hazardous substances. Okay.
You want to hear it again?
Okay. Motion to deny the conditional use permit for Bright Solutions because it violates 98-34 sub 9, which prohibits the warehousing of hazardous substances and flammable liquids.
Okay.
You okay with that as a second?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's fine, as a second.
I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Okay. Tom?
I voted an aye.
Okay, so that would be yes.
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
No.
Dan?
No.
Mary? Or excuse me, Jean, I'm sorry.
No.
Mary?
Yes.
What's the count?
That would be a 4-3. So the motion
motion
carries.
passed.
Mhm.
So, someone from this committee will go to the village board tomorrow and give an update on our decision, on a recommendation as a board. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the board.
Item on the,
On the agenda.
did it make the agenda or, no, that
No,
was,
it did not. What do you have? Oh, just, and Becky's note, she just again
Yeah.
mentioned that our, go ahead, our regular.
Oh, yeah, just that the regular December 21st meeting has been canceled.
Everybody's been so good this year, you get Christmas off.
Wow.
Becky, did you write to
Thanks,
the property owners down there
Did I write to the property owners?
about cleanup?
Oh, I have the,
You're talking about in the.
no, I,
In the shop.
I,
Shop yards.
right. I have turned that information over to our zoning administrator, and it is being looked
Okay,
at. Yeah.
good, thank you.
Any other routine business? If not, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye. Aye, we are adjourned at 8:12. Thank you all for coming to this special meeting.
Merry Christmas.